Today on Ag News Daily.
Tiling truly helps you manage your soil health better. You're using that soil as a natural filtration device and a sponge. So those nutrients are filtering all the way through your soil before hitting the tile and then continuing down to the outlet.
Well, welcome back to the weekly edition of the Ag News Daily Show. And look who's back.
I'm back, matching my twin with our vests.
I need mine to be a little bit fuzzier. So you got your Christmas
Ignorant,
tree up yet?
Of course. When did you put yours up?
We did ours Saturday. We went and cut it down, and it was almost too big for the living room.
So you're team real tree. I'm team fake tree. We put ours up the week before. Oh, wait, you're right. The Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Well, I could have guessed that. We did see some snow falling across the Midwest and Great Lakes region. We had plenty of breezy conditions from an approaching cold front, strong winds that had gusts of up to 50 miles per hour. A surge of Arctic air will continue to push temperatures well below average. The first impact is the Midwest, and yesterday we saw that exactly happen here, but it will spread to the Gulf Coast and East Coast today. When we look ahead, temperatures will rebound over the weekend, and however, the new weather system is expected to bring some scattered showers from Sunday through Tuesday. While this may carry a temporary temperature drop, it won't be as sharp as our recent cold spells, Delaney. Rain and snow associated with the system could be heavy, offering some relief again to those drought-affected areas. So good to see a mix of weather, and it finally feels like winter.
We just skipped from summer straight to winter. There's no fall in between.
That's pretty accurate.
Well, President-elect Trump's pick as Agriculture Secretary for his second term has a bit of a surprise attached to it. He officially tapped former White House advisor Brooke Rollins after several major news outlets had reported former Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler would be the nominee. Rollins, a Texas native with a strong public policy background, served on Trump's 2016 Economic Advisory Council and helped shape the domestic policy agenda during his first term. She is currently the president and CEO of the America First Policy Institute, a conservative think tank that launched in 2021 to advance Trump's economic initiatives. A lawyer by training, Rollins has also served as acting director of the White House Domestic Policy Council in the final months of Trump's first term. She was, however, raised in a small agriculture-focused town in Texas, and Rollins has deep roots in the agricultural education and advocacy space as well. She served as a Texas FFA state officer and was part of 4-H during her youth. If confirmed, she would be the first Secretary of Agriculture to have served as an FFA state officer previously. A little fun fact.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. She also graduated from Texas A&M with a bachelor's degree in agricultural development, where she served as their university's first female student body president. Earlier in her career, she worked in the Texas state government as policy director under Governor Rick Perry, managing natural resource policies essential to agriculture. So really quite a bit of agriculture background there with Rollins. In a statement on Truth Social, President-elect Trump praised Rollins, saying that, quote, her commitment to support the American farmer, defense of American food self-sufficiency, and the restoration of agriculture-dependent American small towns is second to none. Other nominees throughout the last couple of months included quite a few different folks, including the North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum to be the Interior Secretary. If confirmed, Burgum will oversee areas like the Bureau of Land Management and the National Park Service. We also saw President Trump has tapped, of course, Robert F. Kennedy to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. In that role, he will oversee the FDA, CDC, and the National Institute of Health. So just a couple of those top picks there, Tanner, but glad we got a little more background on Rollins, because I was having some questions maybe before we knew all of that extra background provided.
I'm just waiting for you to get your text with your cabinet installment.
Can't wait.
During this lame duck session, though, some lawmakers are advocating for new provisions that would help provide support to all farmers, even those who are not directly affected by a natural disaster. Farm Policy News says while many farmers aren't hit by disasters like hurricanes and wildfires, they still experience significant price decreases for their commodities this year. I think a lot of our listeners can reflect on that statement. Congress also has another potential shutdown looming, and it is said to be looking at another short-term extension that would put most major funding decisions into the fiscal year 2025 for the new Congress and President-elect Donald Trump to deal with. Some of the House Republican leadership plans to attach a one-year extension to the Farm Bill to keep the continuing resolution and government funded. Reports are also saying that there is a chance that they will add the Farm Bill to an annual defense authorization bill, which is also a must-pass package to handle this month, but most are leaning toward the continuing resolution. It's interesting to see how it could tie in to a couple other must-pass obligations. Retiring Senate Ag Chair Debbie Stabenow offered a last-minute farm bill that Republicans and key farm groups saw as too little, too late. Another one-year extension of the 2018 law is now expected, with the seating of the new Congress probably pushing serious action on the new farm bill into the spring or later of 2025. So no immediate good news there, Delaney.
No, doesn't sound like it. In some other policy-related news, on December 3rd, the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, the Senate Committee on the Environment and Public Works, and the EPA ranking member, Shelley Moore, announced a new agreement, the Thomas R. Carper Water Resources Development Act of 2024.
Say that again
I
2
know.
times fast.
We're going to call it WRDA, is the acronym. A Water Resource Development Act, or WRDA, is passed every 2 years and is authorizes funding and improvements for the maintenance of our nation's inland waterways, ports, and flood and storm protection. One of the features of this new legislation is the cost structure. Currently, 65% of the funding comes from the federal government, while 35% comes from Inland Waterways Trust Fund. The proposed 2024 Act will change the cost share to 75-25%. And according to Mike Steenhoek with the Soy Transportation Coalition, this change will likely result in more inland waterway projects completed more quickly, which should enable additional priority projects to proceed. Not something you hear often in government, faster
That's right.
projects. But this legislation now proceeds to the full House of Representatives and the Senate floor for final approval, but it does sound like largely there's been bipartisan support on this.
There has been, and we've also seen a lot of other takeaways coming from this year's elections. As we wait for an impact of what this new administration will have come January, we recently heard a panel discussion from folks on what the post-election is and what it means for agriculture going forward. Delaney, you were a part of that at the NAFB convention. So let's take a listen to what the difference could be from 2016 presidential-elect Donald Trump to now the presidential campaign that ends here in 2024. Sam Kiefer, Vice President of Public Policy at the American Farm Bureau Federation, explains his answer right now.
The big difference between now and 25 and 2017 was 2017 the rhetoric on the 2016 the rhetoric on the campaign trail was about deregulation, and what we heard in 24, we heard some of that, but as we head into 25, the remnants of the 24 campaign also talked about the food and health stuff. Also, there was a whole lot more talk about tariffs than there was in 16, a whole lot more talk about border than there was in 2016. So deregulation, yes. Economy is going to be number one, but there's going to be also some of these other things that are likely pressing up.
John Newton, which many folks may recognize the name, formerly with American Farm Bureau Federation, is now the executive head with Terrain Ag. He also shared his comments about what drove the election was this year rural America's favorability towards President Trump, and also notes the challenging times farmers are in right now from his point of view.
Now, at this point, you talk to farmers, they're not very happy with where things are today either. Net farm income's down 30% over the last 2 years. You look at the Purdue CME Ag Economy Barometer right before the election, it was the second lowest of all time. So rural America wasn't happy. General America wasn't happy. And I think that's why you saw the results that we did with Donald Trump.
Well, President-elect Donald Trump and his allies have already articulated plans for his first 100 days in office. Sam Kiefer, again with American Farm Bureau Federation, explains what he thinks is going to happen in those first 100 days.
I think it'll be different from the 100 days in 2017. We're witnessing a much better organized transition, and there are policy initiatives ready to go. And they get just seem more prepared, more comfortable, and have a much clearer direction moving forward. There will be change. There will be significant change, and along with that change comes uncertainty. Some of it will be welcomed. Some of it is going to give farm advocates and farmers more work to do. But the one thing that you can observe about President Trump is that once you think you have things figured out, the dice get rolled and things change. That being said, it will the taxes is going to definitely be on the agenda. We certainly know that trade conversations will ensue, not the least of which is USMCA is up for renegotiation, was up regardless of who is going to be in office. So that's going to be something that we're going to have to contend with as well.
Next up, we're going to turn our attention to some comments from Ethan Lane with the NCBA. He says there are some educational opportunities for agriculture advocates in this next coming administration and in Congress.
If you look at that base of that voter group that elected Donald Trump, you have those traditional Republicans, but then you have folks that really are newcomers to that tent. They have different ideas about food. They have different ideas about where that food comes from. They aren't trustful of the science that we rely on typically in some of those areas. And I think for the people in this room, it really is the biggest takeaway from that election is what do we do with this group that elected Donald Trump and this House and Senate majority? And how do we make sure they understand what it is we do in American agriculture? Because I think it's presented us with a real challenge.
Likewise, we hear from Rob LaRue, president at National Farmers Union. He says that there is hope for voters that are hearing both the challenges and successes from farmers, such as recent ballot initiatives, including a California county voters failing on a proposal to prohibit CAFOs.
The fact that we had such incredible results in a couple of these ballot initiatives out there that we could not take for granted, right? If we look at the ban that was on the ballot in Denver, the Sonoma County. So we can do incredible things in getting the message out, making sure that everyone understands agriculture and what that role is. But I think we have a lot of additional work to do as the rest of this cabinet gets considered.
Well, representatives and senators will be sworn in on Friday, January 3rd. President-elect Donald Trump will regain control of the White House on Inauguration Day on January 20th. So that is what we have to look forward to coming up after the first of the year.
Well, after the first of the year, we may also finally hear some confirmation about the 45Z tax credit.
I doubt it.
I know. We got a lot of conflicting reports this week that are raising questions about whether guidance on the 45Z clean fuel production tax credit will be issued before the current administration leaves office. The uncertainty casts doubt on a critical component of President Biden's climate agenda, according to three sources cited this week by Reuters. The 45Z tax credit, which is of course set to take effect on January 1st of 2025, aims to boost clean fuel production, including sustainable aviation fuel and carbon sequestration by farms and ethanol plants. However, without detailed guidance from the Treasury Department, the program may effectively remain dormant or be disbanded altogether. Although a U.S. Treasury official, Michael Martinez, told Brownfield Ag News this week that the Treasury Department still anticipates issuing guidance before the end of the Biden administration, that will enable eligible producers to claim the 45Z tax credit. That, of course, is differing from what Reuters has reported. The tax credit was initially designed to support the production of about 3 billion gallons of SAF by 2030, part of broader efforts to address aviation's 2.5% contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions. While the Treasury Department has committed to providing guidance by January 20th, biofuel companies remain eager for a finalized program to ensure that the credits rollouts stay on track. So stay tuned for updates on this evolving issue as the clock ticks down here on Ag News Daily.
That's right. We do have some avian updates as far as that comes out of the California Department of Public Health. Issued the warning on November 27th about a second batch of raw milk that is now on store shelves testing positive for the avian flu virus. The milk originates from Fresno County Farm, where officials are awaiting results from their latest bulk milk tank testing. No human illnesses have been linked to the consuming of this raw milk at this time. However, in related developments, the CDPH reported 2 additional infections of dairy workers, bringing the state's total human cases of avian flu this year to 31. Most of these cases, including the 2 latest ones, are connected to exposure to sick cows. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, confirmed that these cases increasing the national total to 55 for this year. Also, federal officials confirmed that more H5N1 avian flu outbreaks on California's dairy farms, as well as poultry facilities in 3 states as of recent. Delaney.
Well, in some other news here, Minnesota-based Cargill, the world's largest agricultural commodity trader, has permanently announced that it will be terminating 500 employees in its home state. According to a company letter released by Minnesota officials earlier this week, the layoffs will begin February 5th of 2025. This move is part of a broader workforce reduction, as Cargill recently revealed plans to cut approximately 5% of their global staff. The decision comes after the company experienced a significant revenue decline in the most recent fiscal year, driven by a slump in commodity prices. Cargill employs over 160,000 people worldwide. Meanwhile, Tyson Foods has announced the closure of its meat processing plant in Emporia, Kansas, a decision that will affect over 800 workers. The facility specializes in marinated proteins and ground beef. In a letter to the state of Kansas, Tyson explains their rationale for the closure, citing efforts to, quote, increase operational efficiency. These developments reflect ongoing challenges in the agricultural and food processing sectors, as many companies navigate volatile market conditions and some shifting market demand, Tanner. So the latest headline there from our folks in the processing industry.
Yeah, a lot of great headlines here with upbeat footnotes here to wrap up our broadcast today. We also saw a Texas federal court halted the implementation of a Corporate Transparency Act's beneficial ownership reporting requirements that included Americans, farmers, ranchers, and agribusinesses. The court held the CTA as likely unconstitutional, so it has issued a preliminary injunction barring the government from enforcing the act and its reporting requirements against anyone. Before the ruling, small businesses that met certain criteria would have had to file reports with the Treasury Department by January 1st, 2025, or risk fines and criminal penalties. That's the case also in the state of Iowa, Delaney, as we see that potentially receiving injunctions from across the U.S. The preliminary relief will remain in effect until the conclusion of legal proceedings, at which point the court may enter a permanent injunction. In the meantime, the government is expected to appeal this preliminary injunction. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce says unless and until an appellate court overrules or narrows the injunction, no businesses are obligated to comply with the reporting requirements of the Congress enacted the CTA on January 1st in 2021. So we'll see and keep you updated more on that.
Was that the BOI filing? That's what I was just...
Yeah, BOI or BFA. It's too many acronyms.
Yeah. Well, glad I've already done mine. Should have waited.
You're a rule follower, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Well, in this week's interview, we hear an update from Advanced Drainage System about some tiling trends in 2024 and what's ahead in 2025. Let's get into that interview now. Well, Tanner, I'm excited for today's interview. This is a conversation that we probably don't give enough attention to on the Ag News Daily podcast, but is certainly one that drives profitability, drives a lot of grower decisions, and is one that's just very unique in its space. We're chatting today with Logan Chamberlain, the Ag Market Manager for Advanced Drainage Systems, to talk all things drainage, tiling, and water management. Logan, excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me.
So, Logan, before we get into the overview of who ADS is, let's get into the overview and background of who Logan Chamberlain is. Give us a little bit of your career journey and how you found yourself at ADS.
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, I am a farmer. So, third generation farmer out of Northwest Ohio. So, the ag economy is very near and dear to my heart. I actually found my way to ADS kind of way off the beaten path. So, I had a background in history and marketing and banking. And, really my passion lies within agriculture and wanted to be able to come to a space where I could make a difference and be involved in working with, the agriculture industry all day, every day. I'm going to spend my time off farm doing something. I want to be with my farmers. And really, it just kind of ended up in the perfect hand here at ADS. I kind of stumbled into the role, but I grew up very much being told that it always paid to tile. I think I had that beat into my head from day one by my father. And funny enough, I end up here at ADS and, it's exactly like you said, it always paid to tile. I didn't know why. Right. And then the more and more time that I spend with ADS, I always say that it's a great job. I love marketing. I love what I'm doing for ADS. It sells itself, right? As soon as you see tile and water management work, you're going to want to keep doing it. It's addictive. And so a perfect space and a chance for me to land here. So kind of a crazy journey, but I've been here about 2.5 years now.
Well, that's great. And we've said ADS a lot of times already, but that's for Advanced Drainage Systems. So tell us more about the company itself.
Yes, absolutely. So Advanced Drainage Systems was founded back in 1966. So truly started as an agricultural-based company, innovative champions of the corrugated plastic pipe is kind of our claim to fame. So moving out those clay tiles that we see gracing our fields, and a lot of them are still working, but really hard to install, and finding some of the efficiencies and ways that we could better scale and kind of impact our farm ground. So that's how ADS started. Today, now we are one of the largest recyclers of plastic in North America, and we also are across different markets. So from our commercial and residential markets, and then of course, where we were kind of founded and grown, our agricultural base as well.
Delaney, have you ever seen clay tile get installed before?
I was just trying to think if I've ever seen it. I want to say no. I don't think I have.
I've only seen it on YouTube, and it is fascinating how inefficient that process was. It tells you how important drainage was if they took that much time back in the day to install all that clay tile that we run into right now.
That's right. All of it by hand and heavy.
I was just thinking too, Logan, you need in Advanced Drainage Systems headquarters city, you need, how some cities have like home of the world's largest frying pan. I think they need home of the first corrugated tile system in your hometown. Maybe, right? That's a good marketing idea.
I like that. I'll see what we can do with the city of Hilliard.
Well, Logan, as we think about kind of 2024, wrapping up the year here, growers had some tighter margins this year, and we're likely facing that again in 2025. How do these different economic periods impact farmers' decision when it comes to drainage and tiling?
Mm-hmm. So I think the great thing is that really as folks experience, drainage and pattern systems across their fields, it, like I said, right, it's kind of a no-brainer for them when they're saying, where do I want to invest or what's going to be my best ROI? So once they kind of start and dip their toe into, let me do a pattern system on this acreage, let me see what kind of results I get. There are some guys that are paying it off. That ROI is 3 to 4 years. Other kind of 6 to 7, right? It depends on your model, what you're raising, and kind of, your area of the country. And so I think that's the biggest thing is that, right, everyone is a little bit anxious. The market is not what it had been for the last few years. And there's just a lot of things out of farmers' control, right? There's a lot of it in the past, the presidential election. What's going to happen? What's going to happen now? Is there going to be further tariffs? Are there going to be further issues or sanctions? Or how much lower can commodity prices go? And so I think what I really love is that control what we can control, right? We cannot control Mother Nature. That's not going to win. Can't always control global trade, et cetera. But what we can do is control our farm and our field and our water practices on farm. And so a lot of times it's a no-brainer that, hey, if I can get 30% better yields from installing a drainage system, if I can grow a healthier crop, if I can have better root structure in those time periods of drought or perhaps excess water, we kind of experienced both ends of the spectrum this spring and harvest growing season, then that feels like a no-brainer for me. And I should be thinking about installing some ADS tile on my field.
Yeah, I know coming from the finance background that I had, one of the easiest conversations you have is if a farmer has a strong relationship with a tile contractor, an installer, with a solid plan together and the historical data of the value that it brings, it's typically one of the easier conversations to have on a financial side of things. But I don't want to skate over one of the comments that you made in your opening about one of the largest recyclers of plastic. When it comes to that process, explain more in detail what you meant by that.
Absolutely. So we, of course, use a plastic tile, right? That's what we are manufacturing in each of our plants across the country. We have 13 different ag plants that we say they're ag focused across the whole network. And really what I'm saying and referring to for recycling is that we are able to take those close consumer goods. They go through a variety of our 3 advanced drainage systems recycling center. So they're cleaning, sorting, purifying, and reducing that down to a standard pellet. And then those go back out to all of our plants. And so, it's this beautiful thing of material science and understanding all of those properties that we can blend our recycled material in with virgin resin material to create a consistent plastic pipe every single time that not only meets but exceeds all of our performance standard expectations. So we're able to do good, keep that plastic out of our landfill. And also, then that has a positive benefit to our farmers that we're serving with that same corrugated plastic pipe.
Well, Delaney, it'd be hard to say no if we understand the ROI from installing tile and you can tell the banker that it's green too. We got 2 wins going for us.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, Logan, let's talk a little bit more about some of the other innovative technology that you have at ADS. We talked corrugated tile already, some of the recycling materials that you guys are focused on. Talk to us a little bit more about some of the automation that you're focused on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to lift stations, which are, very popular currently, they are helping a lot of farmers or landowners that have not previously been able to tile because they didn't have the proper outlet, or maybe just, quite frankly, topography and the gravity of their fields were not on their side. That's kind of opened the market for a lot of people being able to manage their water on farm. In addition to that, we've made some really big strides as a company of how we are handling material and being able to be safer and more efficient for our contractors. So some of this has been through a really exciting innovation in the past years that we have an auto maxi coiler in one of our plants up in Fairmont that we are kind of seeing hit the network currently. But it's just every single time that pipe, how it's bundled, packaged, etc., is consistent. 16 bands, it will look the exact same every time. So that's really exciting for us. And we're also able to be more efficient, right? So in the past, there's been some concerns about labor in the marketplace, and this allows us to continue producing the right quality material that's expected of us, even if we're having some challenges with staffing. So that's the one big one. Sorry about that, Tanner.
No, you're good. So because of that, I assume the advancements and the extra resources that you and ADS are putting into the products and the delivery systems, you have a way to adopt and make those relationships with installation contractors that are sufficient. And I know that I'm going to be taken care of if I sign up, right?
Yes. Yep, absolutely. So our contractors are absolutely incredible. And a lot of times it's their personal name, it's their personal business. And so their reputation depends on ours. And that's not anything that we take lightly. So love being able to support our contractors and have not only our name as the manufacturer, but their name as the installer, be held to the quality standards that they expect.
Logan, as we think about 2025, you already mentioned the presidential election. We've got maybe some shift in administration policies when it comes to things like clean waters and WOTUS. What are some of those key issues? Maybe it's outside of policy as well, but what are some of those key issues that you're going to be focused on from ADS's perspective in 2025 that our growers listening or watching should know about?
That is a great question and a big question. So I will do my very best to answer it. But we know a lot of times farmers and perhaps our conservation or water quality efforts are targeted. And so I think something that is very important for ADS as well as the rest of the manufacturing, and tiling industry is that tiling is truly doing our part, right? We are better managing water. There's some misconceptions out there that we are just flooding downstream without any effect. And what I always really love to push into is that, tiling truly helps you manage your soil health better. You're using that soil as the natural filtration device and a sponge. So those nutrients are filtering all the way through your soil before hitting the tile and then continuing down to the outlet. And so I think that's kind of the biggest thing, right? We hear a lot of pressure about water quality. And I think it's just kind of stating the facts and making sure that folks know that we are doing absolutely our part and that drainage is really helping enable soil profile to manage that water accordingly.
So is this something that is geographically limited, or are our listeners from across the U.S. able to utilize these products? What does that look like for me in all parts of the U.S.?
That is a great question, Tanner. So yes, there are some kind of differences and nuances and regulations regarding drainage practices across the state. And I'll even say sometimes down to counties, right, was where we're looking at wetland designations, et cetera. So I think the best thing is if there are questions, your USDA or local soil and water conservation district is going to be your best bet for, hey, I want to do a project. What's my next step look like? But in large part, right, really across that ag zone across the country, we are seeing progress being made of acceptance of proper drainage water management systems and adoption on it, right? They are seeing the true benefits of it to our farmers.
Well, Logan, before we let you go, if any of our listeners want to learn more about ADS, maybe they're interested in getting some tile for 2025, where should they go for more information?
So they should check us out online at adspipe.com/agriculture. So that will have a great collection of details, the top 10 reasons to tile, kind of more the inner workings of truly how drainage will work. And then most importantly, if they want to get in touch with one of our incredible sales reps across our country, there is a find a rep feature that they can find who their specific rep would be. And I have to give a shout out, our reps across the country are lights out. So they will be best suited to kind of answer any questions, how to get started, and why they truly should consider drainage in their certain area.
Well, Delaney, I'm excited. I get to meet some of her team members out at the North American Conservation and Drainage Expo in Indianapolis, as well as it sounds like, Logan, your crew is out on the trade show circuit this winter trade show season as well.
Yes. Yep. We will be kind of across the country at local, regional, national shows. And of course, we love to talk about water management. So if you see us, come up and talk to us. We'd love to share what we know and learn more and make sure that it's the right fit for your farm.
Great. Well, thank you for hanging out with us today and sharing what you know with our audience.
Thank you guys for having me.
She was great as a conversation and some very good information. But Delaney, what do you see happening in the markets this week?
Well, Tanner, we of course had a holiday shortened week last week with Thanksgiving and late trade activity on Friday when the markets were open. But we've got a few major competing news stories that appear to be weighing on the markets this week. Next week, we will have the December WASDE report on Tuesday. And a lot of analysts are suggesting it's a 50-50 shot on major market moves versus not. Trade tensions between the U.S. and China continue to heat up this week, as China announced this week a formal ban on the export of multiple precious metals to the United States in response to the tariffs the U.S. placed this week on China's semiconductor industry. The new measures announced by the U.S. target a list of 140 entities and aim to place controls on China's ability to access chip-making equipment, software, and high-bandwidth memory chips. Of course, the other big unknown is, once President-elect Donald Trump steps into office, what's going to happen there? But this week he laid out his vision for blanket tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, just prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. He also announced on his social media platform, Truth Social, that one of his first executive orders will be to impose an immediate 25% tariff on all Canadian and Mexican products entering the U.S., an additional 10% tariffs on Chinese products. His rationale is that such harsh economic sanctions will force the U.S.'s two neighboring countries to curb the flow of illegal drugs and migrants across America's northern and southern borders. Turning our attention to another market factor was South America. This week, StoneX Brazil shared their latest soybean crop estimate. Maintaining the crop would be 166.2 million metric tons. This would mark a new all-time record if realized, but remains on the low end of estimates. nearly 3 million metric tons below USDA's most recent estimate and well below most private estimates. The StoneX Brazil team pegged the country's soybean planting at 92.5% complete on Friday's update, now a full 10% ahead of this time last year, and sitting at the fastest pace seen in 5 years, as conditions have shifted to be really ideal compared to their slower start. Neighboring country Argentina's soybean crop also going in the ground ahead of schedule and getting off to a solid start, as we're looking here to really see the global supply on soybean tightening up. And as we kind of look at our final factor here, strength in the U.S. dollar, of course, is weighing heavily on exports, although we did have a really strong week this week for soybean exports, so whether that trend continues is yet to be seen, but a lot of different competing factors. I think markets are really kind of waiting to see in anticipation what we do. Do we see President Trump put tariffs in effect immediately after stepping into office? We'll know in about a month's time.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
Get a little drink of coffee there before we wrap up. That is an obnoxious slurp.
I just want to draw attention to this beautiful coffee mug. As a reminder, the Iowa State Cyclones will be playing in the Big 12 championship game tomorrow at 11 o'clock Central Time. So make sure you check that out. And Iowa State men's basketball just beat Marquette. So great time to be a Cyclone fan. Go Clones.
Go Clones. Well, good luck for anyone else's football teams playing. If you're not an Iowa State fan, we won't hold it against you.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But you can check out our social media accounts. Follow along with us. Maybe follow along with Tanner. He might be live tweeting the game. I don't know, but
I'll be coaching 5th grade basketball during the game. It'll be one of those where I may be a distracted coach. Listeners, we appreciate you hanging out with us. And what do you say, Delaney? Is it time to let him go?
Let's let him go.